What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 15, sleepers and studs.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go through each position and give you my top DFS stud and my top DFS sleeper pick. And if you stay to the very end after all my picks and after I show you the Draft Dashboard tools, I'll give you my super secret sleeper pick that no one's talking about. Okay, let's take a look at the quarterback position. My Week 15 quarterback stud is going to be Jameis Winston from the Tampa Bay Bucks playing the Detroit Lions, who have the fourth worst defense overall, and they give up the seventh most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Jameis Winston has averaged 23.2 fantasy points per game on the season. He gets about 4.1 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 5% owned, projected at 19.9 fantasy points here in Week 15. He's $6,900 DraftKings salary and $1,300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game, so a high-scoring game, and they have the Bucks favored by 3.5. Jameis Winston is always throwing the ball. If he can keep his interceptions to a minimum and throw a few touchdown passes, he can score 20 to 30 fantasy points. So I like Jameis Winston here versus the Detroit Lions. Okay, my Week 15 quarterback sleeper pick is Phillip Rivers from the LA Chargers playing the Minnesota Vikings, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers has averaged 18.3 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 28, 18, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games. He's only going to be about 1% owned, projected at 16.3 fantasy points here in Week 15. He's $5,600 DraftKings salary and $1,800 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game. So a high-scoring game. In a close game, they have the Chargers trailing by 2.5. This is a home game, decent matchup, super low ownership with big upside. So I like Phillip Rivers here versus the Minnesota Vikings.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
and then we'll send you $100 PayPal.
So it's that easy.
And we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video.
So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, who do we have at the running back position? My Week 15 running back stud is Chris Carson from the Seattle Seahawks playing the Carolina Panthers, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Chris Carson has averaged 16.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 18.9 rush attempts per game and 3.4 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 21% owned, on the field for 72% of the snaps, projected at 18.5 fantasy points here in Week 15. He's $7,500 DraftKings salary and $100 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, and they have the Seahawks favored by 6.5. So another high-scoring game. This is a great matchup, so I like Chris Carson here versus the Carolina Panthers. Okay, my Week 15 running back sleeper pick is Kareem Hunt from the Cleveland Browns playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Kareem Hunt has averaged 14.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.8 rush attempts per game and 5.4 pass targets per game. He's only going to be about 1% owned. He's on the field for 100% of the snaps, so he's always out there. projected at 13 fantasy points here in week 15. He's 6,300 DraftKings salary and 400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 49 points scored in this game. This is another high-scoring game. In a close game, the Cleveland Browns only favored by 3. This is a great matchup, so I like Kareem Hunt here versus the Arizona Cardinals. Okay guys, if you're getting any value from this video, please hit that red subscribe button. We put out new fantasy football videos every day. So if you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell notification, you won't miss out on any of our new fantasy football videos. Tons of free stuff coming your way. It only takes a second, and it helps us push out more fantasy football content for you guys to consume each and every day. It's because of you subscribers that make this possible. So thank you for supporting this channel. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. My week 15 wide receiver stud is Keenan Allen from the LA Chargers playing the Minnesota Vikings, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Keenan Allen has averaged 16.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.2 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 7% owned. On the field for 87% of the snaps, projected at 15.7 fantasy points here in week 15. He's 6,300 DraftKings salary and 500 more on FanDuel. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 45.5 points scored in this game, so a pretty high scoring game. The Chargers trailing by 2.5. A home game, so I like Keenan Allen here versus the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, my week 15 wide receiver sleeper pick is Emmanuel Sanders from the San Francisco 49ers playing the Atlanta Falcons, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Emmanuel Sanders has averaged 13 fantasy points per game on the season, getting about 6 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 74% of the snaps, projected at 13.7 fantasy points here in week 15. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary and 300 more on FanDuel. He's only going to be about 1-2% owned, so super low ownership. Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, and they have the 49ers favored by 10.5. This is a home game, a great matchup. This guy's explosive. We saw him put up 37 fantasy points last week off of 9 pass targets. So I like Emmanuel Sanders here versus the Atlanta Falcons.
Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL, and you can try the tools for NBA. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the tight end position. My week 15 tight end stud is Zach Ertz from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Washington Redskins, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Zach Ertz has averaged 15.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.2 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 12% owned. On the field for 86% of the snaps, projected at 15 fantasy points here in week 15. He's 6,000 DraftKings salary and 700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 39 points scored in this game. They have the Eagles favored by 5.5. So Zach Ertz continues to get a ton of volume. This is a great matchup. So I like Zach Ertz here versus the Washington Redskins. In my week 15 sleeper pick at the tight end position is Dallas Goedert The other tight end from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Washington Redskins, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Dallas Goedert, he got 6, 7, and 8 pass targets in the last 3 games, scored 7, 13, and 9 fantasy points in those games. He's only going to be about 1% owned. He's on the field for 65% of the snaps, projected at 9.8 fantasy points here in Week 15. He's $4,300 DraftKings salary and $1,400 more on FanDuel. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 39 points scored in this game, a somewhat close game with the Eagles only favored by 5.5. The Eagles are hurting at the wide receiver position. These tight ends have been stepping up big time. I think that continues here in Week 15. So I like Dallas Goedert here versus the Washington Redskins.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. You've unlocked the bonus content.
Okay, my super secret sleeper pick here in NFL Week 15 is Golden Tate from the New York Giants playing the Miami Dolphins, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Golden Tate has averaged 13.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.8 pass targets per game. He was out due to injury a couple of games ago. He came back last game, had a bum game, only 2 fantasy points off of 5 pass targets. It was the Darius Slayton show last game. And Golden Tate is only going to be about 3% owned, on the field for 100% of the snaps, projected at 11.6 fantasy points here in Week 15. He's $5,900 DraftKings salary and $400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 46.5 points scored in this game, so a high-scoring game. They have the Giants favored by 3.5, so another close game, a competitive game, a home game, fantastic matchup. So I like Golden Tate here versus the Miami Dolphins.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.
Do you want more fantasy football picks? Check out the video linked right in the middle of the screen. If you got any value from this video, please tap that subscribe button before you get out of here and ring that bell notification so you won't miss our daily fantasy football uploads. We're putting out new videos every day, so I don't want you guys to miss any of our free content.